Good day.
Good day to you. It's raining here in the UK as I speak, and it's quite cold. Hence, I've got my big jumper on. Yeah. So we're back, Lee Norris and Donna Atamanchuk, with the latest of our live stream series. Likely to be the last one we do before Christmas, or maybe we'll squeeze another one in. I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, see how we feel. These are our live streams of consciousness, really. We decide, we don't really get together beforehand. We sort of choose what we're going to talk about, and then we get right into it. So today we thought we would have a conversation about communicating effectively with different energies. So Donna, this was something that you and I were discussing last week. So I think you also thought it'd be a really good idea to bring it up. So where would you like to start with this one?
Maybe just first off, maybe what energies mean, or what we infer by that language. That might be something new for some people. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I like it, because at one, okay, so to kick it off, at one level, maybe we could argue that energy is all we bring. So we're present physically, or we're present online in the way that you and I are now. But energy comes in this, in the easy sense, in the visual energy, and also in the speech and the language. It's kind of energy that I'm producing, and you're hearing it. And the tone of that energy, the speed of that energy, all the other things, that come across in there are part of the energy that we're bringing. That's at one level. That's just, we're just exchanging energy, right? And making sense of it.
All the time.
So that's
and I don't know if people, I wonder if people realize that when they're sitting there quietly, it's not the quietly that is the energy. It's actually the energy that they give off of sitting there. So somebody could be sitting on their deck, really enjoying the view, and they just give a different energy off than if they're sitting in a different spot where maybe they are bringing a different type of energy to it as well. So it's not because someone's sitting still that creates that energy. It's the energy that comes from the energy they give off doing different things. And so it's a really interesting thing, so someone's like, you can just see you can feel someone's good energy if they're just sitting doing something they enjoy. And they could be in no movement. Energy doesn't come from movement. Energy radiates from us. It's something that we give off, and it's a way that we can invite, or the opposite. And I can't think of what the opposite of invite is besides deter. There's probably a better word, but deter comes to my mind right now. But that energy we give off when it's like, oh, I think I could walk up to that person and say hi.
Yeah.
Or why is it that one person's more approachable at their desk or at a family function than another person?
Yeah. So you and I are both now HeartMath certified trainers. So for coherence advantage. And one of the questions that comes up in that, which has really always stayed with me, is what are you feeding the field? What are you feeding the field? And that to me is a part of this energetic communication, because in that, essentially what I think, if I understand what you're saying, is just by being in a particular way. I mean, I love talking about being. How am I being right now is part of that energetic energy that you bring. Now, we know, because of the HeartMath work, that our heart has a significant amount to do with that. We're radiating a magnetic field, and the magnetic field can be felt by others. That's part of it. So when you're sitting in a room, or you're sitting on the deck, or wherever you are communicating something about your state of being.
Yes. And it's something that if you practice more of, then that ability to be in positive state of being is something that you can move into, even if you're in a situation that's maybe uncomfortable, or one you'd prefer not to be in, or something that's sort of struggling or challenging you. But
so,
I think,
no, I was going to say, so the different energies is part of it, and we'll have to come back to that, I think, because there's so much more to that subject.
But in the day-to-day work, what does it look like, right? It can look
Yes. So
you and
when
I are
we,
both thinking.
yeah, when we talk about communicating effectively,
Yeah.
that's part of it. So he's kind of understanding and becoming more self-aware about how am I, and what am I communicating just by being here.
Yes. Yes. And so I woke up this morning with a huge amount of energy. And so even just the ability to be able to come today and just listening to music as because it's my morning, it's your afternoon. That ability to realize, like, when I go into a conversation with somebody else, if that level of energy is what that conversation needs. So I would say I'm a pretty big extrovert, very high influencing energy, and I make a choice, sometimes the right choice, sometimes not so right. I make that choice to decide where I'm going to be on that space, right?
Yeah.
And so sitting here today, which energy, like how much of that energy is going to be beneficial to you and I conversing or working together? And so thinking about that, if I'm sitting down with somebody who wants to pay attention to more details or get into the specifics, or something's a real concern or concern to them that it kept them up over the weekend and they want to talk to me on a Monday morning, me going in extremely bubbly, wanting to sing a song or have music on in the background might not really create the right connection between me and that person, even though I am truly interested and I want to be of service to that person that's on my team. So to me, that's it in play, right?
It is. And just as a reminder, just in case anyone's watching in real time, and, welcome if you are, and also, wonderful if you're watching via our YouTube streams, that you are in Canada and I'm in the UK. And so the energy that we're talking about is going through the airwaves. This energy, this discussion, and other people are receiving it as we're talking now. And they're picking up whatever they're picking up.
Yes.
As they go along, right?
Yes. And so when we start to think about different energies, the one that we often see in the workplace and in life is more the tempo, I find. So, the speed we often refer to. I love the word tempo because I danced for so long. I love that tempo. What's the tempo of the music? And that ability for us to think about, like, what tempo is going to not lose my authenticity, but what's the tempo that's needed? Like, what's the conversation we're having? Is it a space where you want to be realistic, optimistic, and how do you create a tempo to sort of serve that as a leader or a person, individual on a team that is really wanting to strive for success this week?
And what really strikes me about this conversation already today is the self-awareness that you've brought to it. These reflective questions and the acknowledgement that you've woken up today with a lot of energy, and you've thought about that before you came into this, and probably other things. And I think that so in a way you might have thought, how do I want to be today when I turn up with
I did.
And I suppose that's interesting, isn't it? Because how often do people that to some extent you're talking about self-awareness here and energetically being self-aware, right? What's my energy like today of that? What do I want to bring? How do I want to bring that? How could it affect the tempo of the discussion that we're having? Or I don't know. I think that's really interesting stuff.
But it is that speed, right? So one of the things we hear about at work is like, we've got lots to do. We got to get things done this week. It's Monday morning. Some people will be coming in, as we talk about in HeartMath, rushed energy. And the other individuals will be coming in with different energy. Like, let's slow and steady. It's December, evenings are busy. Days are busy sometimes with clients or different lunch events going on, or people just dropping things off at the office, or people, at home work. Sometimes we miss out on those little drop-ins, right? But that ability to sort of think about how we manage all that, and even on a Monday morning or Monday afternoon, or for some people maybe listening to it could be late Monday night or early Tuesday morning, right? So the ability for us to think about how we show up and how we want to persevere or push through our week is an important part when we start talking about communicating differently. So it's not about not getting those things done because we have deadlines or expectations, but it's the ability to understand that we will all go about them differently and we could be as successful.
So you've put together a couple of questions for us, which just leads beautifully in from what you were just saying. So the question that you asked us is, what is my why for wanting to learn and apply different energies? So why would it be useful to even ask people to consider this? Is, I think, what's behind the question.
Yeah, I'll give my basic answer that I give, a real belief I bring to the table, and I'll let you build on that. How does that sound?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it.
My big belief is, how do I make someone else comfortable being around me? And how do I show up? Not going to change my values, not going to change any of that. But how do I show up in a way that is easy for other people to just want to sit beside me, or want to even say, I bet you I could go up to Donna. I don't know anyone else here but Donna, and she'll open her shoulders and she'll make space for me. And that is who I want to be in life. That is, I want to be that person to do that.
So there's an intention in there, there's a desire, right? There's a desire.
Very much
so. There's the thoughtfulness around others, and creating, I don't think you said this, but I think I interpreted it that way, maybe I got it wrong, is some kind of safe space for people so that they know that you're in an approachable, you're approachable, and that you kind of more than that, but that you actually want engagement.
Yeah, and when people maybe are not, it's like when someone, like the first time you try something, you likely aren't going to get it the way you're going to get it on the 20th time. But for someone to be able to come up and say, could you just walk through this, or can you point out one thing, or could I just share with you what I've done? It's just a very interesting space that way.
You're reminding me of a coaching session that I had many years ago with a coach who was helping me. And the question, as funny as now, you remember some questions over others, right? And he said to me, when you come into a meeting, how often do you consider the agenda versus how you want people to feel before, during, and after the meeting? And I remember that question because I think when I was younger, I used to kind of think the agenda was really important. And now I think that, there's a blend of both, but how people feel about that is hugely important, I would say. That if people are fearful, for example, of coming into a meeting, that can be how they're turning up. The energetics that they bring beforehand is a kind of fearful energetic. And if you're more aware of that when you're somebody else in the meeting, if you're chairing the meeting, you can proactively do something about that, which is kind of what I heard you saying, that you're being proactive about creating the right kind of energy if you want people to feel in a particular way.
But you have to slow down. I think the question that we have is, how do you measure work energy in yourself and others? One of the first things that we need to be able to do is we actually need to be able to slow down and allow ourselves to actually feel other people's energies and be interested. Like I wish I could tell you that, but if we're not interested, then none of this these things don't start to the wheels don't start to churn, right? Like the wheels don't go back and forth, they're not spinning together. So that ability for us to think about what Lee said, and what the question is, how do we measure work energy? First of all, we need to slow down so that we can see that maybe the agenda isn't top, but the people are always the first. But it's okay to say we have some things we need to try and get through, but how we get through them is the choice we get to make. And so you can measure work energy by trusting your intuition to start with. And one of the things we learned through HeartMath is the more we actually practice some heart coherence, we will start to be able to tap into that intuition, and we will start to trust ourselves, and we'll be able to find creative solutions. And so if someone's interested in learning more about that, just reach out to Lee or I, and we would love to be able to show that to you. But you have to trust your own energy, and you have to trust, even if you have nervous energy or rushed energy, just own that and then see how it is going to impact your day. And so I don't like rushing. I get rushed energy when I travel. I know I get rushed energy when I travel in the airport. My mom was petrified of the airport. I am not petrified, but I've still brought this energy with me. So I like to get to the airport early. So one of the ways that I know I'm not going to lose it, I think I reduce it sometimes, but I just have strategies of how I actually want to show up in those days that are different than other people, and I'm okay with it. And so part of how do I measure my work energy is really starting to trust ourselves. And 2 weeks ago, I described my energy as anxiously nervous. That was my energy that I had, anxiously nervous. And I was okay with that. But then I thought about how that impacted my day and how it would impact like Lee and I communicating when we communicate for work. Thoughts to add to that, Lee? Thoughts to add to the question?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's kind of it is possible to anticipate that as well, and I think
Yes.
tuning into it, I think is, and not only tuning into it, but tuning yourself and your body into another person's energetics can be really, really helpful. And the reason I say that is because sometimes those energetics are quite, you may feel them as excitement or anxiety or something like that. But if you've prepared yourself, you can hold somebody else's energy here to allow yourself to regulate. Yeah, you don't have to absorb the energy of another person, and they don't have to absorb your energy in a sense. But the more you're aware that you are communicating in this way, then the more you can prepare for, and therefore, be ready for the need maybe to regulate.
What's the next question, Lee?
So the next question, right? The next question is, what holds us back from leaning into this, Dawna?
I'll let you start.
I wonder whether people are listening here thinking, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? These energies, maybe what came to mind for me is that if I really want to engage people in whatever it is, there's an adaptation that I may need to make in order to allow that to happen. So bringing my energy in the way that I want it to be into a room isn't necessarily going to get the best out of other people. And in a way, I suppose it's where we started. Not that you were saying that anything like that, but you were aware of your energy level when beforehand. So you decided to do what you decided to do. Maybe dial it down a bit, or maybe dial it up a bit, or whatever. Because we talk about dialing it down, dialing it up. We are not our energy. We are able to. We can sometimes lead with certain types of energy. We might like to be the person that takes the lead, or we might be the person that likes to sit in the background. It might be that we're the talker. It might be that we're the reflector. Some people like information and data. Some people kind of don't like that. So,
But don't you think there's more? Like there's if you perceive. Sometimes I ask people, I go like, this is the way to communicate. I wouldn't want to communicate that other way. I don't see it as a way other people are going to respect. And I sometimes find through coaching, one of the things about that holds us back from leaning in or trying a new style is those stories that we've been telling ourselves about that style for so long. And so some people don't want to communicate a certain way because it reminds them of a parent, and they do not respect, to tell you the truth, the way a parent, their own personal parent, communicates. Or they had a boss or a leader who communicated, but maybe they did that in an extreme way. And so from that perspective, or they've been told for years that, they've been labeled or told something about themselves that maybe isn't even true. And so the things that actually holding us back from leaning in, the thoughts I have is, one, maybe we don't know how to do it because we've never tried. It's like learning a new dance. If you've never tried it, you don't know even the first step. You can't hear the music, right? You can't hear the tempo in the music. The second thing is, I really feel strongly our pots of soup sometimes bring stories that we're telling, and that in itself holds us back from trying something new. Or when we have tried something new, we have felt people laugh at us.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to be vulnerable. You talk about what we're talking about here, and it's being vulnerable to do something, or maybe we don't understand the data. So now we have to be vulnerable to ask it so that I can actually step into that space of wanting to work with data. in a way that's effective for my team instead of just avoiding it.
I think there's a few things coming up for me. One of them is, sometimes, I think I've heard it, maybe, I don't know if it was ever said of me or not, but sometimes you might get feedback that says, you need to speak up a bit more. If you spoke up a bit more, things would be, you get more done.
Do you think people say that about me? Do you think people say that about me?
Sometimes.
Sorry, everyone.
Sometimes, maybe. I'll have to think about that one.
Sorry.
But I think that, sort of like when you're told something, but to some extent, what happens in that communication can be, if you were a bit more like me, things would be better. In other words, if you communicated with me the way that I wanted to be communicated with, then things would be a whole lot better. But that needs to be really reciprocated and thought through intentionally. There is a saying about meeting people halfway, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement, actually. But what we're talking about is about, we're talking about energetics, but we're also talking about preferences and stories. And I agree with you completely that the stories that we tell ourselves can sometimes lead us to be kind of locked into a particular comfort zone, maybe, or to kind of, make us, lead with a particular kind of energy when a different kind of energy would be really helpful for us at that moment in time. You and I talk about this, actually, don't we, quite a bit. So that you can, but what's really, really important in what you said there is that if you want people to do things and they do it, then you should encourage them and lean into the fact that they're trying and they may get it wrong, rather than to tease them or to kind of shame them, in inverted commas, if what they do doesn't quite work out. So that supportive environment.
One of the reasons why when people ask me and I say, like, they'll say, like, you want to try? And I go, well, maybe try somewhere where it's low risk. The next time, you're standing in line at the grocery store and somebody needs to get in front of you because they're rushing, or you can feel they're rushing. Just if you're the type of person that maybe would normally say, like, I've been waiting, they need to wait. Just let someone else in. If you, I know it doesn't seem like much, but that ability to actually just be able to practice these things, maybe not at your big meeting or, not with somebody that you're trying to, but just with others. It's really, really interesting to start to practice. And if you sit on volunteer boards, it can be a really interesting place to start to practice showing up in a different way where people don't have often a preconceived notion of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. You get, once again, beautifully, you've brought us on to this question. We tend to work in threes. We kind of bring three ideas into the sessions.
I love
so this one is, what's the connection? And we've already started it, to building effective relationships and engaging with your team, because I think a lot of this is about relationships, isn't it? It's about if you're giving off energy, which is that can be in all sorts of ways, that is welcoming, you'll get a different response from people as if you're giving off an energy that is kind of maybe a more annoyed or a more rushed kind of energy. If you look impatient or you feel impatient, maybe, to another person. This probably goes a bit deeper than that, actually, but it's, well, what do you think? What do you think, Donna?
When people feel that others are understanding how they like to communicate, and you will specifically identify, I believe last time we were together, you asked these questions around here, so I'd like to make time for it. If we can remember what other people have said, and then we create space for those things without them having to ask, it's a very interesting, subtle way of being able to connect with other people's styles. If we pay attention to the way other people like to work, we can start to potentially, like, be able to mirror. I mean, you talk about mirroring, but I'm not a big fan of mirroring for unauthentic reasons. But if you notice that somebody likes to start, or you notice that you just kind of start to notice different patterns of communications and the way they ask questions, you can start to prepare your agendas and meetings for those things. So that's where we start also talking about the EQ the EQ of that optimism and reality testing. How can we sort of bring those things? So we're bringing both to the table when we're having conversations. We're not bringing one low and one high. We're saying, how do we both bring both of these? How do we bring the energies we want? How do we bring the fact that we communicate differently, but we also have different motivators, which we could talk about at a different time in one of our podcasts, but we have different motivators. So understanding what motivates us then also allows us to potentially build better relationships with people. There's many different, I love Tetris pieces. There's many different Tetris pieces to really building these types of relationships.
Yeah. And I think it's what you're making me think of is that if you're curious about that, you know, I know we use that word, but you can't understand somebody's motivation for things unless they really tell you, you know, and they're not going to tell you unless you create the space for them to be more open and more vulnerable. You know, one of our podcasts that we did was about humor. You know, that's crept in again today, you know, having a slightly playful element. Not everything has to be so serious all the time. You know, this is a serious conversation, but you know, it can be playful because that less can go wrong when you're being playful, when you choose not to, you know, to take offense about things, or you know, you just choose to try something different or allow somebody else to be different in that, and then encouraging yourself and encouraging others in that moment can be very, very good for business.
Well, because we learn when we're having fun. We learn when we're having fun. So if we're having fun, our brains naturally are more relaxed. We take in information, as you've stated, differently. And you know, if we feel that it's okay to have fun, like you know, like, and fun is different things for different people. It's not always like great big belly laughs. It can be different things for different people to have fun. And even understanding that answers this question as well. Like, what's fun for different people? How do we do this? Just, you know, it's fun to work on a crossword puzzle in the office this week together. Maybe they took the one out from the newspaper and it's been around the office, and the goal is to figure out which team can get the most, or who can get the most, or as a team can they finish it. So maybe they get some sort of fun reward, right? How do we create spaces of fun? How do we take in different people's styles? And how could we really continue to build on that?
I just love the idea, Dawna, that when we're being playful, we're learning. What a lovely thing to say.
Yeah.
You know, it's that, you know, life often is playful. And I think we should bring some of that energy into our workplace more, because it's likely to be that the work will get done anyway, but it's how do we want to be when we're doing that work. I think that's a lot of what's behind this conversation today.
Yeah, it is. So
yeah. And now we're at 1:30, so I'm wondering if there's anything else before we finish up today.
I just always appreciate those who have joined us. We want to thank you, and those who are listening to them who enjoy these. Please share ideas and comments. We are always open to topics you would like us to explore. And if you have any questions around HeartMath or heart coherence, or even what rushing energy is, yeah, just reach out. Lee and I would love to continue this conversation with you. So thanks, Lee, for taking the lead on this one today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and what I really appreciate is that also I appreciate you, but I also appreciate that we had a question today that we'll come back to. So our live watcher, how do you measure work energy in yourself and others? I love that question, and I really would love to come back to it because it's a far less tangible question than KPIs and other things. So thank you very much for that, and we will definitely answer
Pay
that.
attention. We'll probably post something on LinkedIn in a written thing about that question.
Absolutely.
So stay in touch.
Yeah. So thanks to Trevor for that question and that comment. Dawna, lovely to see you, and see you again soon, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.